idea.
So it turns out this is the most common regret of people approaching the ends of their lives, according to studies into palliative care. It feels obvious, I guess, that you should live a life true to yourself, that you shouldn't let yourself be guided all the time by the expectations of others. You should make choices for yourself. You should spend your time actually doing stuff you want to do rather than what you think other people want you to spend your time doing. Parents, kids, outside influences. But I think it's really difficult to actually do that. And I'm now 28, in a stage of my life where I feel like there just isn't like an obvious way I should be spending my time. I don't have kids and don't plan to have kids particularly soon. I am reasonably well established in my job, so that's something that just happens and I'm focused on day to day, but it's not something I feel like I'm growing really concretely the same way as you progress through school, university, into the first couple of years of your career. And so I don't like describing it as a quarter life crisis, because crisis feels a bit strong. It feels like something suddenly has come over me and like my life is miserable, which just isn't the case. Like, I'm generally decently happy, but I am suddenly pretty scared of sleepwalking through the next 5 years of my life, not necessarily achieving a huge amount, like growing a bit at work, but not that much really, spending my evenings when I get home at a reasonable time, just enjoying Beth's company, eating, watching TV, weekends with some friends, and then a few holidays a year, and that's about it. And as much as I think it's easy to say, looking back on your life, I wish I'd lived a life true to myself, it's really difficult at the time. Like, I have financial commitments. I have to pay my relatively expensive London rent every month for the next year. If you have kids, you have very significant time and financial commitments to them. Beth and I have our monthly routine of when we see friends, when we see family, working, going on holiday. But over the last couple of weeks, while I've been listening to stuff in the gym, I've listened to two things in particular that have forced me to really reconsider, and hopefully you will do the same after watching this, how you're spending your time and whether there's a bit of a reset you need in terms of what you're doing. So the first was a podcast episode with a guy called Scott Galloway, and in that he said, "We're going to be dead soon," and I just think so many people don't realize how fast it's going to go by. Like, your 20s is such a huge period of growth. For me, I've gone from living at home age 18, 19, 20 to going to university, learning languages, getting to live on my own, live abroad, and also then become a lawyer, get progress in my career. And even if you haven't done that, right? Like, in your 20s, you are just going from being a child where you're dependent on your parents to being completely self-reliant, earning money for the first time. And the second thing was the book, The Pathless Path, which I gotta say, like, I don't love the whole of this book, but I do love it in the sense that it made me really think more about the path that I'm on, how much my view of the world and what I'm doing, the decisions I'm making for my life are set because I'm really living like up to the expectations I think other people have of me, and how much I'm making decisions for myself. And so it forced me to ask a question that I don't think I've maybe ever asked myself truly. When you look back on the next 5 years, in 10 years' time, I'll be 38, which is pretty scary. What will you regret? And keep in mind when you're asking yourself this question, that Daniel Pink's book, The Power of Regret, talks all about how people, unless they've done like really bad things like cheating on a spouse, for example, generally don't regret the stuff they did. They regret the stuff they didn't do. So over the last week or so, Beth and I have taken a step back from being insanely busy at work and planning our wedding and running our multiple businesses. And we've had 2 or 3 long and serious conversations about what we really want to get out of the next few years of our lives. And Beth, for example, told me that she'd love to live abroad and thinks that actually if she doesn't get the opportunity to do that now, she might regret it. And I had never heard her say that. And similarly, I said to her, I do really love my job and I am continuing to grow in it, enjoy it, and I'm not sure where I want to go in my career yet. And I'm thinking about that really aggressively now I've had all of this kind of realization of needing to focus on what I spend my time doing. Essentially, I do feel like I will in 10 years regret not having had time for stuff outside of work, like making YouTube videos and running Menos and seeing friends and family, spending time with Beth. Stuff outside of my job that's really important to me. And so I need to keep in mind that that will be a regret that I will have if I'm not careful. This is not just about like, what is your job? Are you in the right job for you? It's how you spend all of your time. Is there a hobby or a skill you could learn? Could you start a small business, I don't know, painting your friends' dogs, or join a choir, or start a new morning routine where you get more exercise, or you could move house to a better area, which allows you to save more money and actually you have a better life. It's about thinking about what you can change in your life that you think could have a positive impact, and then just trying out those things. So I'm going to come on to 3 techniques that I've got from other people that have really helped me think about how I spend my time. But I would challenge you right now, the first thing to do is just to commit to changing one thing that you think, if you made that change, would make you happier. So yeah, stop, pause, like right now, and commit to doing just one thing. Let me know down in the comments and then press play again. I'm talking about those kinds of like small changes or learning new skills. I remember so distinctly when I was a student and I wanted to give something else a go. I wanted to start my YouTube channel. The first thing I did was went on Skillshare and did Ali Abdaal's course on video editing. And that small change got me into this. I then had a few chats with Ali, because he was a pretty small deal back then, and he convinced me to start a YouTube channel, and here I am like 4 or 5 years later, and this is such a big part of my life. So yeah, Skillshare are today's sponsor, but even since that like first kind of Ali Abdaal course on video editing, they've been a huge part of me learning new skills that, for example, I've used in my business with Beth, Menos. So I strongly recommend starting your learning journey on Skillshare, following one of their carefully curated learning paths. I personally followed the learning paths they have for photo editing in Adobe Lightroom, which has been huge for the thumbnails on my channel. I've also learned about email marketing and most recently how to use Notion. Plus, if you enjoy my videos, I always have my very own Skillshare class about how I use Trello to organize my life. So yeah, if you are one of the first 500 people to click the link through the description, you'll receive a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. Okay, so 3 techniques that you can actually implement to help you think about how you spend your time and what you could be doing that would make you happier. The first one is to write your own eulogy, i.e. what people would say about you after you're dead. This is a pretty weird exercise, but it's one I did maybe a year ago and redid again last month just to put things into perspective. And essentially all it does is makes you focus on what you want people to say about you, and it kind of pulls out the regrets you would have, because you realize that the stuff you spend loads of your time doing, for example, like a job, probably doesn't feature that heavily in what you hope people will say about you after you're gone. And it kind of puts in perspective, for example, like for me, the number of M&A deals that I help to close in my job at work, while important in my day-to-day life, isn't one of the things that I hope people will write about me when I'm gone. And there's this Steve Jobs quote, which I think sums this up nicely. I'm going to read it. It's, "Remembering that you are going to die is the best way I know to avoid the trap of thinking you have something to lose. You are already naked. There is no reason not to follow your heart." Okay, having written what you want people to say about you when you're dead, slightly less morbid, is technique number 2, which is to practice patient consciousness. Now, this is a phrase, I guess, that I kind of came up with myself for the mindset I want to adopt over the next couple of years as I'm thinking about what I really want to do and how I'm spending my time. 2 elements: patience, which I think comes from Gary Vaynerchuk. Not like, you gotta hustle, but less of that, more this idea, which I do really think is a good idea of his, which is, although life is short, actually, I'm 28, I'm still very young, and it's really important that you give things a good go, that you, for example, if I'd been a trainee lawyer, found it really hard, not sure if I want to do it and go another direction without properly giving it the chance it deserves, i.e. being a corporate lawyer for a year or 2 or 3, having the patience, I think, to see slightly more long-term the skills I'm developing, how much experience I'm getting, the plus sides, I guess, of what I'm doing, I think is really valuable. So yeah, the first bit of this, I think, is just to not spend so much of your time thinking about what else you could be doing or whether you're 100% doing the right thing and spending your time in the best way. This is really just based on my experience of knowing loads of people who kind of always think the grass is greener and either switch between different things or stay in the same thing, but constantly feel like they could be doing something else or should be doing something that they find more fulfilling, etc., and making themselves miserable in the process. I think step number 1 to patient consciousness is just to enjoy now. It's to not forget the things that you're grateful for. So yeah, like right now, think of 5 reasons your life right now is actually good. But on the flip side, you do need to be conscious while you're being patient. And so step 2 of patient consciousness is to plot your time investment portfolio. I really strongly recommend plotting minute by minute how you spend every minute of an entire week or 2 and really getting a sense of exactly how you're spending your time. And then step 3 is to iterate patiently. So, for example, before quitting your job, maybe see if you could negotiate to go down to an 80% contract where you work 80% of the time but get 20% off. I have a friend who has done this, and it means he's getting the opportunity to travel the world while also retaining a very high-paying and well-respected job. It may be that at some point he decides he wants to quit that, he has time to think about what else he might want to do outside of his job. Essentially commit to doing small versions of things you think you might want to do. Don't sign up to the choir for the next 2 years of your life and pay loads of fees. See if you could try like 5 sessions. Similarly, if you think you might want to paint your friend's dogs as a little side business, maybe try doing a few for free and see if you actually enjoy it before you commit to loads of time making a website and trying to turn it into a business. Generally, once you patiently iterate it though, you will find things that you do want to make more of a commitment to. And so that is in itself scary. And the third and final technique is really for dealing with the fear around that, and that is to complete Tim Ferriss's fear exercise. Now, I will link down in the description to the full blog post where Tim sets out, I think, a 7-step process. So what I'm going to share here is my slightly modified version of that I use when I'm thinking about making bigger decisions. Step 1 is to define your nightmare. So think about the absolute worst case scenario. Think about it in what Tim calls painstaking detail. Think about how much your life is in danger, and particularly focus on how permanent the potential downside is. And then think about how likely it is that absolute worst case scenario is going to happen in reality. Step 2, think about what steps you could take to repair the damage. Try to be realistic here, because I think human tendency is to catastrophize. I think actually the chances are it'll be easier to get back to where you were before than you think. Third, what are the benefits of a more probable scenario? And here he encourages you to think about both the internal benefits, psychological, self-esteem, etc., and external benefits, stuff like success, a company succeeding, financial reward. Fourth, what is it costing you to postpone action? This comes back to the question we asked earlier. If you look back in 10 years, the next 5 years of your life, what is the cost of doing nothing now? Are you going to have the opportunity later to maybe try this thing in the future? And if you can telescope out of your life and look down on it in over a 10-year span and know actually pretty confidently that you're probably going to have regrets about how you spent your time, I think that's a pretty strong indicator that you should spend time right now reassessing how you are spending your time and what you're doing. And then finally, step 5, ask yourself, what are you waiting for? If there are genuinely good reasons why actually a year or 2 would be better than right now, fair enough. But actually, if you can't genuinely come up with a really strong and convincing reason that you think you could convince other people for why you should wait another year or 2 to do this thing, you should probably just do it. So yeah, I have really enjoyed making this video. I genuinely have over the last couple of weeks, and will continue over the next couple of months to be thinking lots about these questions while continuing to enjoy my life, really make sure that I'm actually not so busy focused on how else I could be spending time that I don't enjoy right now. But yeah, I think it is really crucial that we think about how we're spending our time, and particularly having conversations with loved ones, with friends, about risks we could take that we think would improve our lives, that we're scared about, and actually speak to people who might push us towards taking those risks, towards maybe changing stuff that we feel scared to change. So yeah, let me know down in the comments what you thought of this video. And again, comment that one thing you're committing to changing, like one thing you spend your time doing that you're not going to do anymore, that you're going to replace. And please do give this video a like if you enjoyed it. It massively helps the channel. I am hugely grateful if you do that. And finally, I obviously hope you're well and look forward to speaking again very, very soon.